Good morning, everyone. Not good morning, it's good afternoon because it's 12:03 Central Time on the 2nd of February. Today we've got a few good topics for you. First, I want to give my condolences to the families that have lost their loved ones in the DC air collision that occurred this week. I also want to extend my condolences to the families of the crew on the Black Hawk, especially the family of Rebecca Lobach. I believe it's Lobach, because there are a lot of bloodthirsty vultures that have been roaming around on Twitter the past few days. Some even accusing a trans woman that was in the Virginia National Guard of being the one at the helm. Regardless, my love and support goes out to everyone that lost a loved one in that. So first off, I'm going to introduce our co-hosts, and then we'll get into our topics. First co-host up is Margaret. Please say hello.
Hello, everybody. How's it going?
And then, of course, we've got our other jarhead, our crayon eater from the Northeast. Please say hello, Haley.
Hello, everyone. Happy to be here.
And then, of course, we've got our one and only, our favorite Liz from down south. Please say hello, Liz.
Hello. I hope everybody's having a wonderful Sunday. And I also would like to send my condolences to the people who lost their lives, or the families of the people who lost their lives in that plane crash. It's hard enough to lose a loved one without a media circus around it. My heart goes out to you.
Absolutely. Okay, so there's been a lot going on the past month, and I've been trying to get this podcast together, but this week is the first week I've been able to have more than just me and one other person on, so I'm gonna take it. Let's see. So this week I actually changed our first topic. It was originally going to be about Linus Tech Tips or Linus Media Group and the bullshit that they're pulling with Steve from Gamers Nexus. But I'm going to leave that on a back burner, or the back burner, for the time being, since it's kind of died out a little bit. Instead, in its place, we are talking about Tarrant County, Texas. Who has heard of Tarrant County, Texas?
Not really familiar with Texas counties.
Okay, so I'm not specifically familiar with Tarrant County, but the Commissioner's Court, or the County Council, as most others might call it, is in Fort Worth. So I'm fairly certain that Tarrant County at least inhabits part of Fort Worth.
Well, I'm familiar with Fort Worth.
Yeah. So, it's got to be right by Dallas. On your screen right now are the four commissioners and the county judge that are in charge of the county commission, or the county council. The only person on this commission is the commissioner from the 2nd Precinct, Elisa Simmons. I don't know if anyone watched my video that I dropped in the American politics section yesterday, but I have a video for everyone. Let's go ahead and open this up. Now, you see before you a man named C.J. Grisham. Does anyone know who C.J. Grisham is? I'll take that as a no. C.J. Grisham is the quintessential and the main face of Texas Open Carry, or Open Carry Texas, OCT. He had a video go viral back in 2013, so a little under 12 years ago, where he was taking a hike with his son in Temple, Texas. He was carrying his AR-15, and he was concealed carrying his .45, and his son was also carrying, openly carrying a rifle, which was at the time legal to do in Texas. However, Temple, Texas arrested him and charged him with disturbing the peace, which failed. They declared a mistrial, and they once again went to trial, and they once again failed. And when he tried to sue, the case was dismissed because there was no case law in Texas or in I think it's the Fifth Circuit that Texas is in, where they could be held accountable for arresting him falsely for doing something completely illegal, which is a bunch of fucking bullshit. Regardless, that is why he is famous in my eyes. I've been following him around since 2013, and he has since retired from the Army, and he has become a lawyer. He is now a civil rights attorney in the state of Texas. Now, the week before this video, he had tried to come in front of the commissioner's court to talk about how his friend had died in the county jail and how he has great concerns. However, the county sheriff had tried to arrest him for carrying in the county commission building, which he was legally able to do in the first place. Now we're going to see 3 commissioners and a judge willingly violate the First Amendment.
Him, right there. Yeah.
All right. So I came here last time because my good friend Mason Yancey was murdered in the jail. All right. That's why I meant to come here. But you didn't hear from me. The reason you didn't hear from me is because the thugs you have outside the door there assaulted me, threw me in handcuffs for no reason whatsoever, and tried to arrest me. Thankfully, Sheriff Wayborn thought the better of valor and listened to me when I told him to read the fucking law.
Did you hear what he just said?
Yeah, he had to tell law enforcement to read the fucking law.
Yeah. Well, this judge is about to have him removed from the commission building, or the commissioner's court building, for saying fuck. Now, the judge thinks that it's a courtroom, but it is not a courtroom. A courtroom in and of itself is not a public forum. It's not even a limited public forum. While it is open to the public doesn't have the right to speak at all. In this instance, because it's a commissioner's court, it's actually a limited public forum, and anyone who is granted the ability to speak, or who has the right to speak, has the right to use whatever language they wish. But this judge doesn't think so, even though there is plenty of case law that says the only time that you cannot use profane language is when you're in the audience. not when you're the speaker.
Now, let me tell you something.
Remove him immediately for that comment. Get him out of here.
Excuse me, that's protected speech.
And it's not going to be protected in this courtroom.
If it's
Did you hear that? It's not going to be protected in this courtroom. It's not a courtroom.
Yeah.
You may call it a courtroom, but it's not a courtroom. There is no defendant. There is no prosecutor. There is no witness. Just because you're a judge does not give you absolute immunity when you're in this quote-unquote courtroom. Your absolute immunity begins and ends at the bench in your own courtroom. This is not your courtroom. This is the commissioner's court. This is the administrative body of the county. As an administrator, you do not have absolute immunity as a judge. So, we're going to be seeing some lawsuits against Tarrant County, which, once again, this judge, like the judge in West Virginia that searched a man's home, is going to get suspended, and he's going to cost the county thousands of dollars.
It's protected speech. It's ridiculous.
This is the problem right here. Let me get my stuff. What the hell's wrong with you people? You're in my way.
Now, you remember me telling you about the only commissioner on this commission or commissioner's court that had any integrity, right?
Right.
Okay. So that's her on the left. Second seat in. And once again, I'll go to the picture. That is Elisa Simmons, the only commissioner with an ounce of integrity in her entire body.
Let me get my stuff. And Chief Driscoll here needs to be fired.
Mr. Cradaville, is it indeed protected speech?
Yes, it is. I've got the case law right here.
Mr. Cradaville.
Commissioner, I would say that it would be appropriate for me to give legal advice and close on that.
I'm sorry.
I would.
I think it's protected speech.
Well, I believe our policy says you don't allow it.
What
The one
policy?
we just passed and the one before it. So, all right, Mr. Hermes is not present.
What did you just say? What? In response to my question? I couldn't hear you.
It's a more nuanced question than simply me making a ball or strike call at this moment. I would say that so long as the action is in compliance with the court's policy, that's what we should defer to at the moment.
So the court's policy supersedes freedom of speech?
No.
Constitution? Okay.
Now, in the center is Judge O'Hare, Judge Timothy O'Hare. He is a Democrat from that area. He has very explicitly run and been extremely critical of Elon Musk, especially in the past several months during his campaign to be put on the commissioner's court. But you're about to see him say something extremely disgusting.
But you'll look into it.
I can give you an answer to that question. Yes, it's dependent on the facts of what.
Also, I would love to see someone clip Commissioner Simmons at some point with one of those Thug Life shorts, because she's about to fucking boss this shit.
what's occurred, yes. You know, this constitutes legal advice, and I would just advise the court to allow us to talk about it in executive session if there's a question as to.
Somebody could probably Google it and see if it's.
The policy that's sitting here before us that we are following does not allow profane language. So I'm enforcing the policy that is in existence at the moment.
That's fine. That's fucking fine. But I need to know if it.
That's fine. That's fucking fine. She said it for him. Thoughts?
I think that thank goodness she was there to say, maybe we could just fucking Google it.
Yeah.
What a crazy thing to have to tell your coworkers, by the way. Hey, we could just look this shit up.
Well, and while I'm not providing the sources right now, there are at least 2 cases within the Fifth Circuit that very explicitly say that any limited public forum where a speaker is up and it is during their time, they can in fact use whatever profane language they wish, and it cites back to I can't remember the case. It's the one in California where the guy had walked into the courthouse wearing a t-shirt saying "fuck the draft," and that went to SCOTUS. And SCOTUS said that it is protected speech. So fuck Tim O'Hare and fuck the other 3 commissioners on this commissioner's court. But here's what Tim O'Hare said about what Commissioner Simmons just said.
You're simply the most classless person we've ever had sitting on this dais.
You are the most classless person we've ever had sitting on this dais.
Is it because he doesn't own a mirror?
I guess.
Mirrors for men. Hashtag mirrors for men.
But see, that's not the only person that they kick out during this meeting. Take a look.
My name's Carolina, and I have a small freedom of speech YouTube channel.
Yes, her YouTube channel is Carolina in Fort Worth. She's very well known, especially after last year where a bunch of thug cops arrested her for absolutely no fucking reason and smashed her face into the ground, knocking her out. They completely destroyed her face. All because she was asking about why they were towing cars that were in a private lot.
Kind of small. It's got 100,000 subscribers. The second one with 20,000. Facebook with another 20,000 subscribers. I mean, people know my name. If I walk outside, they don't know yours, Mr. O'Hare. But I forgot. I'm in front of royalty. So I forgot to bow. I got to apologize for some of the clothes I've worn in the past. I've worn T-shirts and overalls, but because I kept forgetting I was in front of royalty here. So I just also want to say that arresting somebody, like you did last week, or your hoodlums did back there, for retaliation for exercising free speech rights is sufficient to kill free speech and is an understatement. That comes from case law that some people around here don't know, called Beckley versus the City of Upland, arguing if even loudly with profane language will not and of itself constitute disorderly conduct. That's Payne versus Polly. So swear words alone don't mean that it's disorderly. Swear words do not provide probable cause for an arrest for disorderly conduct because the words as a matter of law are not fighting words, and that's Johnson versus Campbell. So your rules of decorum policy cannot trump the laws of the United States of America. So your rules of decorum are setting your county up for liability. We have the right to say fuck, shit, Damn,
Remove her
bitch.
immediately.
We have the right to say all these words because it's a First Amendment right, and you can't do anything about it. And it's still
Watch
Oh,
how
no.
watch how many cops, how many deputies come to remove her. This is the first one.
so many cases.
1, 2, 3, 4,
Right? Fuck you!
5, and then there are 2 more at the door inside, and there are 2 more at the door outside.
Crazy.
So that's 10 deputies that they have in order to enforce this blanket unconstitutional rule of decorum.
And she just told them why they were wrong, too.
Yeah, she did. And the only commissioner on this commissioner's court that has an ounce of integrity is Commissioner Simmons. It's fucking ridiculous. So I have taken it upon my
classless.
Yeah, I've taken it upon myself to find the social media of every single commissioner, and every one of the 4 that did not, I repeat, did not stand up for either CJ or Carolina. Every day since I saw this, I have posted once to each of their pages just a wall of fuck. Over and over and over and over. I want to see how long it takes them to block me anywhere, because I guarantee someone's going to, and then I've got a lawsuit.
Yeah, you do, because you're not legally allowed to block people as a U.S. employee, are you?
Nope.
Yep. Good for you, Erica. I know you don't need an added girl from me, but I appreciate what you did.
It's just absolutely ridiculous. But I went ahead and I turned the first one of these videos, or the first part of this video where it was just CJ, turned that into a short, and that received a little over 600 views yesterday. So we're doing good. We're doing very, very good. I will turn the second portion of the video into a short as well. Post
When
that today.
we get off of here, remind me to tell you how you can use ChatGPT to amplify that. But I don't want to tell you my secrets on here.
Well, I don't use ChatGPT, so I'll let your fingers do the walking on that one. But this in and of itself really segues really well into the next topic. Now, who watched any of the Senate confirmation hearings for Pam Bondi or Tulsi Gabbard or Kennedy?
I have seen bits of Bernie Sanders sunning Bobby Kennedy, but I've been mostly staying away from this stuff because I just don't think that being angry at people 24/7 can be good for me.
No, it's definitely not good for anyone.
Tulsi Gabbard is a known member of a cult. She's a known little freak. She got run out of the Democratic Party for being a suspicious person. And now the Republicans have opened their arms to her. She's very obviously some kind of foreign asset, but like just alone, the cult she was raised in Hawaii should be an eyebrow raiser. And I know so much dirt on Bobby Kennedy. If I was the Democratic Party, instead of questioning him, I would have started with the first person and I would have just read a biography of his life step by step because you just need to say the dumb shit that he's done, including that incident with the bear in Central Park, to make him sound wildly unqualified for anything.
So while I am extremely skeptical of Tulsi Gabbard, I have generally agreed with her in the past on one very specific thing.
A broken clock is right twice a day.
Pardon Edward Snowden. Pardon him.
Yeah.
He didn't do
No
nothing.
shit.
My man didn't do nothing wrong.
Living in Russia all this time is like enough of a punishment anyway, even if you think he did something wrong. Like, he's been living in Moscow. Bring him home.
When you look at her confirmation hearing, you know for damn certain who on that or in that what's it called? It's not a board.
It's a confirmation hearing.
Yeah, but different confirmation hearings are held by different portions of the
Committees?
Senate. Yes, committee. Thank you.
Okay.
So it was the National Security Committee. Everyone on that committee that criticized her for her criticism of Section 702 and for her support of Edward Snowden, all of these people are in support of fucking Nazi-style spying on their own citizens. Every single one of them.
Now, I don't know how interested in politics you were back when this all went down, but the spying on American citizens was bipartisan. It was not a Republican thing, although I'm sure that the Democrats would like us all to forget their complicity in it. But after 9/11, it was one of the greatest areas of bipartisanship and fucking over American citizens that has ever existed.
Oh, yeah, I was not politically engaged until they released Snowden's name. And then I
got my
saw
first
everything.
mouthful of tear gas over this shit.
But regardless, the second subject isn't specifically about Tulsi Gabbard. It's actually about Trump's pick for AG, Pam Bondi. And
She sounded like an idiot.
What?
She just sounded like an idiot in all of the clips that I've seen of her hearing.
Yeah, so Pam Bondi is formerly the AG of Florida. And just before her confirmation hearing, she had a live a live telecast with the president before he became the president for the second time, in which she said some very revealing things that are a complete throwback to Trump's big fuck up when it came to 2A. Anyone remember what that is?
No.
The bump stocks? Was that it?
Well, that was a fuck up, but it was not the fuck up. The fuck up was him saying, take the guns first, due process second.
Yeah, he's pretty big on shortcuts.
So, let me go ahead and open this up. Can we get a... Okay. There we go. So this was him saying it the first time. Take the guns first, due process second.
In the position
Or
of that
might
individual.
take the firearms first and then go to court, because that's another system, because a lot of times by the time you go to court, it takes so long to go to court, to get the due process procedures, I like taking the guns early, like in this crazy man's case that just took place in Florida. He had a lot of firearms. They saw everything. To go to court would have taken a long time. So you could do exactly what you're saying, but take the guns first, go through due process second.
Have you guys ever noticed that when he's expressing his own ideas that people around him have told him not to say out loud how he holds his arms in his hands? Because you could tell just by watching him that somebody already told him that was a bad idea and he was going to say it anyway.
Yeah, so in this second part of the video, while Pam Bondi is speaking, he knows he needs to not say the thing that he said back in 2017. But instead, his new AG is going to say it for him. Take a listen.
Pam Bondi, Attorney General of Florida, and Mayor, thank you. I know you're going through a lot now. President, she was there that night with me. I think you were there with me until 3:30 in the morning when all these families were being notified, and it was horrific. So I know you've been through a lot, so thank you so much.
Sure, great job.
I have a couple issues that I'll wait and do. I want to talk about them now?
Talk
or
about them.
later?
You can talk.
Well, one, it addresses some of the things you said. In Florida, it's called the Baker Act, but it's our Civil Commitment Act, and it's weak. And it's about 1,000 pages long, and I've had my Solicitor General on it for 3 days now, working on it. We're
Okay. I know that not many people know what the Baker Act is, but it's basically involuntary commitment. Involuntary commitment requires a judicial process to begin with. It initially starts with a mandatory 72-hour psychiatric hold. Now, within those 72 hours, you have to determine if they are stable enough to let go or if they need more treatment afterwards. If they need more treatment afterwards, you have to go to court and you have to civilly commit them into the psych ward. I don't know why I was saying psycho, but the psych ward.
Isn't it crazy how Republicans trust doctors in Florida to make decisions about literally stripping people of their freedoms, but like whether or not a woman needs a medical abortion, not cool.
Yeah. And of course, when it comes down to a Baker Act, a mandatory 72-hour hold, if a doctor says, listen, you're fine, I don't know why you were here to begin with, you get released. They cannot then subsequently take your guns from you.
I realize this isn't the entire topic, that there are no group of medical professionals that I trust less than the mental health professionals, just as somebody who's had a lot of run-ins with them, which is why I said what I said about them being able to make decisions, because one of my greatest fears of the Florida healthcare system is how many doctors I have met in my life that didn't seem to be able to grab their ass with both hands concerning mental health issues. And yet they are the people deciding if you have to stay longer than 72 hours.
If you have rights.
Yeah, if you have rights at all. Like, it's absolutely terrifying.
My experience twice when I was a teenager was that the doctors actually knew what the fuck was going on. And in reality, the people who wanted me committed were fucking retards to begin with. Excuse the language.
No, and that's okay. I had mental health issues when I was a teenager because I decided I didn't want to take my methamphetamines that were prescribed to me anymore. And I had what should have been a very easily diagnosable thing. And I just remember them being like, well, she might be completely batshit insane like forever. and a few other incidents with them that made me feel like they come in with a pre-existing idea of what they're going to see, and it doesn't really matter who you are. And so I'm glad that you had a good experience. I've interacted with doctors in areas where they did seem to care. I've also had doctors prescribe me with anxiety disorder instead of PTSD because, and I quote, that's easier with the insurance. So I just don't trust this group of professionals.
No, it's very difficult to find healthcare, or especially psych healthcare professionals that have the integrity and are actually going to work for you instead of for themselves.
That's a very good way to put it.
In the instance of my two 72-hour holds as a teenager, those were both voluntary because the school that I was going to said, "Hey, you are not okay," because apparently they thought I was going to shoot up the school.
Oof. Was that like right after Columbine?
No, the first one was back in 2005. I don't there was no tragedy that it had followed. The second
I
one,
forgot you were significantly younger than me.
yeah, the second one was in 2007, immediately after the first Virginia Tech shooting. I had been talking to a friend online, said, "Listen, I understand what this person was feeling. I do not believe that they did the right thing, but there's only so much that can be done once you go over that edge." And
Oh, you showed empathy?
yeah, and if that person didn't have someone to pull them back from the edge, of course they're going over. Of course they're going to shoot up whatever. And that was taken out of context, sent to the school, and the school called the police. And the police said, "Listen, you got to go." They tried to expel me for having a very reasonable conversation. I should have sued them. I didn't.
That's so crazy because as out of line as that sounds, like I kind of miss the days where schools were actually like felt like they were trying to do something. Like I hate that you had to go I'm glad they followed up with it. I think that's where it should have been left. Like some adult should have read that whole conversation and been like, "Oh, this child has empathy," and let you go.
Well, yeah, and I had access to it. I was willing to give them the logs of that chat to show them that I was not a danger to anyone.
Oh, and they just refused?
They refused. And while the cops didn't the cops didn't arrest me, and they did not get a search warrant for the house, but they asked my father if they could search the house, and he let them. I was so angry hearing that, and I'm still angry about it to this day.
Yeah, I understand that. Just for anybody listening, never let the cops search your house without a warrant anyway, because sometimes you're doing things that you don't realize are illegal, and if they find it in their search, they may choose to pursue you for that thing, and they can because you let them search your house. So don't be an idiot, make them go get a warrant.
So back on the subject of Pam Bondi, while it is reasonable to do a mandatory 72-hour hold on someone in the correct situation, if they are then subsequently released, you cannot then go to a court and say, "We would like you to keep the guns," because that person has not been adjudicated mentally defective. But she's about to say that they should.
rewriting it along with Governor Scott, who's you're going to meet with him. He's going to give you a ton of good information. We've been rewriting it, and we are going to bring in something called the Gun Violence Restraining Order. So if someone is civilly committed, typically you can hold them for up to 72 hours, but people are getting out within 24 hours, the majority of them. So what?
Because the majority of them are deemed to not be a danger to themselves or others.
What we want to do is let law enforcement come in and take the guns.
Good.
They're a danger to themselves
Which you can't
or
do
others.
right now.
Well,
But they haven't been adjudicated mentally defective. They have not been adjudicated to be a threat to themselves or others. And there is no warrant. You cannot just come into a house and take the fucking guns.
they're because without being adjudicated. So because they're a danger to themselves.
You want them to take the guns and
when they are
not
committed.
go through 6 months of legal trials and everything else,
Exactly.
which is-
But we also have to give the mentally ill the due process in which they deserve, President. So what we're doing is
Due process comes before your rights are removed. That's always been the way it works.
Yeah, I don't like this.
And
This is so ironic too.
I know that I am not getting any fans generally in most of the spaces that I occupy because I am an avid gun supporter. Especially if you're a woman, you should own a gun. I don't care what all of the statistics say. Yes, you can lose your life, but you can lose your life no matter what.
I'd just like to also point out that the same people who tell you that you don't want to own a gun are like they're not the people looking out for your best interest generally. Like if you really pay attention, they're never, how do I put this? They're always like the halfway feminist and not. I don't see the statistic about women and guns shared by people that I also see full-throated advocating for women. How about that?
Absolutely fine.
I feel like a lot of effort goes into trying to convince women to not be violent or to not defend ourselves, to not fight back. If you go all the way back through history, there are always people trying to convince women that it's better to just shut up and take violence against us than to fight back. While at the same time, there's a mixed message that if we don't fight back, then we deserve whatever happens to us. And I just think that guns equalize the playing field. One shot can solve what your muscle mass cannot, Like no amount of judo training is going to really compensate for another person that has the same training being like twice your size.
Abso-fucking-lutely. And one of my other anarchist friends on Twitter is having this conversation as we speak with a bunch of so-called feminists that are saying, no, guns are not acceptable. And he's like, but what if a person comes to your house and tries to rape you? Well, men just need to be taught not to rape. Yeah, we've been trying to do that
by shooting them in the head. That's how you teach them. You shoot them in the head. Then they never rape somebody again. They learned their lesson. She just doesn't want to be a teacher. I understand. Everybody's sick of teaching men things they should already learn. But sometimes you got to teach them a lesson.
And I agree. There are several men that I know that really do hammer into their family and friends. We do not do this sort of thing to women. We don't do it to anyone. But in the instance where these people are just going to throw that teaching away and do it anyways, you need to have something to defend yourself. You need to have something that's going to ingrain in their brain you don't rape someone, and that's a gun.
I read a book called Why Does He Do That, about men and their abusive tactics in relationships. Like, the big thing that I took away from it is that men perpetrate violence on women because it gets them things that they want and it works. And I think that if it doesn't work and some of them get shot, uh that tactic doesn't work for them anymore, and then they have to actually go back to, like, because when they deal with other men, they run a risk assessment first, and they don't do that with women. And I just think that men would behave better if they had to run that risk assessment with women and men, then they would treat women the way that they treat men.
I would generally agree. Though in some instances I do know men that run risk assessments on just about everything in their life.
Yeah, that's some of the men. I mean, your average jackass Dusty, I think is what some people are calling him. Like, when he goes into, like, the convenience store, for example, and he sizes up the guy behind the counter, and then he says, "Hey, could you hand me that?" And then sometimes he walks into the convenience store and he sees a little girl behind the counter and he goes, "Nice tits, can I have your phone number?" And it's because he knows that the girl isn't going to beat his ass. And it's not that he wouldn't have said something out of line to the guy if he thought he could beat his ass. It's more that he looked at him and went, "I should mind my manners," you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, working as a cashier, I definitely learned that, like, I think people who are like big men use this kind of physicality almost subconsciously, where like
Yeah.
they'll kind of flaunt their physicality to get what they want. And I don't even think it's a conscious decision a lot of the time. It's just,
But if
I want
everybody
that
was going
20%
around
off.
armed, they would have to stop for a second because their big muscles don't get them everything.
Yeah.
Moral of the story is buy a gun, which is
All of my
something that
feminist lady friends, by the way, hate my view on guns. So, like, don't think that I'm representing anybody besides myself.
well, and you know, I'm sure a while ago Ruby may have felt the same way, but not this past week, but the week before, I had a discussion with her. I am now trying to find someone in the state of New York that could, in fact, transfer a firearm to her. Because she's dealing with something where even I am saying, you need a gun. Okay, so that's our new attorney general. Our new attorney general is in favor of take the guns first, due process second, which means she is an absolute shill for qualified immunity and absolute immunity. I said it before he was elected. I said it after he was elected, and I was extremely disappointed with Kyle Rittenhouse when he changed who he was going to vote for and decided to vote for Trump because he got fucking dogpiled and told Trump has changed on guns. I told him when he got dogpiled, Trump has not changed on guns. Trump has not changed on guns. He has not changed. And of course, he appoints this stupid fucking attorney general that thinks it's okay to take the guns first. We're repeating 2017 in 2025.
So ironic that that Donald Trump, of all people, the leader of the right as we know it today, is like, yeah, take them guns.
I don't know how to interact with people who I used to think were Republican because he's so very obviously none of the things that they think he is, and it's really frustrating that people will tell me in one breath that they want somebody to fight for the working man, and then he gets up there and he talks like a rich guy and he's like, groceries, I didn't even know they were important, apparently that's everything you buy to eat. And people weren't like, oh, this dude's completely out of touch. They were like, he represents me. And then and then there's the guns thing, and then there's the church thing, which I find like the church thing is the church lady gave him a version of the Sermon on the Mount, and then he went around crowing that she was like the meanest person in the world to him. And like, have you ever even sat in a church if you don't know that one? Because I can repeat like 95% of it by heart, and I'm not a Christian.
He is a 1990s New York Democrat, just the same as Rudy Giuliani was.
100%. And he was a Democrat. But what he really is a chameleon that will change what he believes in to suit the people around him, so long as it allows him to have power.
Oh no, he will not change what he believes in. He will say he's changed what he believes in.
Well, that's what I mean. Yeah. He'll say whatever the nearest person that he thinks will make like him if he says it is that it's not he doesn't seem to have a spine. He appears to be like an octopus or something.
And if anyone does not understand why you should not like Rudy Giuliani, besides the fact of the last time Trump was president, take a look at New York City in the 1990s, and take a look at the stop and frisk policies of New York police, New York City police. The NYPD perpetrated the largest racist stop and frisk operation ever in the history of the U.S. under Rudy Giuliani's direction. And they still do to this day. You're never going to get that bullshit out of New York City.
Well, yeah, that's because cops don't train in schools. They train each other. So whatever the guy before did that worked for him and was easiest, he teaches the new cops, so they all have the same bad behaviors.
And then who was the mayor of New York City after Giuliani? I can't remember him. He ran for president.
Mike B. Something.
Oh, I can't remember his fucking name. He's another fucking billionaire.
No, I mean I know what you're talking about. I think it's like Mike Bloomberg or something.
Yeah, it's Mike Bloomberg. Thank you.
I had it right the first time when I said Mike B. I just couldn't pull Bloomberg up.
Sorry. Yeah, Bloomberg. Okay. Bloomberg took it a step further. And to avoid racist implications, what he did was he said, "Stop and frisk everyone." So New York City became
the problem.
Yeah, New York City became a de facto police state. So as much as the Democrats said, "Oh, look, Bloomberg is so much better than Giuliani." No, he's not. He never was, he never will be. And that fucker tried to dictate what people could fucking eat in school.
Yeah. He was a real world-class asshole. People seem to have missed that. Like when he was running for president, I was like, you've got to be fucking kidding me. I guess one rich asshole makes it in the presidency, and the rest of them are like, everybody else will surely love the smell of my farts too.
Probably. Well, and that's a common attitude for rich folk to begin with. They think their shit doesn't stink.
Oh, I know. I used to date a rich fella, and his friends were something else.
So, you know, we look at this, we see Trump hasn't changed his position on guns, which everyone said he was going to. All the Republicans, all the MAGA said he's fixed himself. He's not going to appoint people that are anti 2A like he did last time. And yet we have a new attorney general that is anti 2A. This all culminates in my question for the day. Does the U.S. have a tyranny problem?
Oh, hell yes. I'm sorry. For those of you who didn't know what she was asking, it was, does the U.S. have a tyranny problem? And I couldn't wait for her to finish speaking.
Oh, no, you waited. I got the sentence out. You know it.
We have a huge tyranny problem, and we always have. And I think it is because democracy by election is fundamentally flawed. And if we had democratic lotteries and we were having people, instead of letting people fucking lie and say, I can represent 100 people, that's bullshit. You can represent yourself and your interest will include your family's interest because you love them. And outside of that, you're lying to people when you say that you can represent them. And it's not a surprise that we have fallen into tyranny when we have arranged our leadership like this on a foundation of lies.
Yeah, and I will actually jump into that if we can speed through this video and article real quick.
Yeah.
We'll jump into democratic lotteries shortly. So
sorry, I didn't mean to change the topic.
Work today is broken. We're all working in too many.
Fine. Let me mute this. I don't like ads in this. Okay, so oh shit.
35 minutes.
God damn it. Let's see, 271. Okay, so right here. This is about comps in Colorado, where a man wanted to go to an A&W restaurant. Yes, they still fucking exist. I'm glad they still exist, but I'm sad that they don't exist where I live anymore. Kind of have a hankering for a root beer float once in a while. So this man goes to an A&W, which are traditionally these days attached to convenience stores, and 3 cops are blocking the drive-through to the A&W.
Oh no! That is not as bad as the one you have. Mine had a sticky ring on it. It was kind of cool. It's an easy storage. Yeah.
Over the next 35 minutes, they keep their vehicles in the middle of the parking lot, all but blocking traffic to the A&W. A viewer pulled up to the fast food restaurant, intending to use the drive-thru. Frustrated by the obstruction, he shouted out his window.
Interfering people from getting their cheeseburgers.
Is that this black car right here?
No, it was the silver car back in the that went through the drive-thru.
Okay, so guy pulls up. He's upset because they're blocking the drive-through to the A&W, and he tells him, get your shit out of the way, assholes.
After yelling at the officers, he maneuvered his car through to place his order, but the insult was way too personal for Sergeant English. And while the driver was in the middle of placing his order, Sergeant English stepped between the car and the speaker, interfering with the man placing his order.
Quit yelling or you're going to get a citation, understood? The lights are there. That means don't go by them, right? By the way, I'm ordering my food. Quiet. Order your food.
The guy did what he rightfully should have done. He told the cop to fuck off. He's trying to order his food. There is no reason for a cop to engage if, you know, all he did was express his frustration with them.
Sam 6 listing.
So are you wanting the strangers in the combo or just by themselves?
The combo meal.
Are you wanting
Colorado 564 X-ray.
Sergeant went to go contact that guy because he told us to move our car. He said, move out of the way, you fucking dick.
That's what he said?
Yeah.
Sergeant English threatened the man with a tip.
So
I am on the side of the guy that told them to move their fucking car. Listen, I lived in Philadelphia for 2 years. Move your fucking car, bitch, is an expression of love, okay? You're doing something stupid, and your fellow city resident would just like you to fix yourself because you're in their way, and you need to understand that when people use salty language with you, it's not inherently disrespectful if you're being a bitch with your car in the way.
Is it Philly or is it Pittsburgh that borders New Jersey?
Philly.
Philly, okay. Then I'm not surprised.
Let me tell you, people in Philadelphia got opinions about New Jersey folk, and it is always hilarious to listen.
Yeah, well, Jersey folk have opinions about Philly folk too.
I'm sure they did. One of the funniest phone calls I've ever gotten in my life was about 6 months after I broke up with my ex-boyfriend. His mom called me to complain that she had to move in with her son in New Jersey because she was a Philly girl and she couldn't imagine living in Jersey. And I never did find out why her son's ex-girlfriend was the one that she called to talk about that with, but I appreciated it.
Okay, this is not showing up. Oh, that's because it didn't. Okay, there we go. So this is the article from the local news station on this specific thing. I'm not going to continue the video. So we're just going to go through the article. John Smith just wanted some food from... Oh, sorry, it's not A&W, it's Humdingers. Just wanted some food from Humdingers, but ended up with a citation that a Denver civil rights attorney doesn't think will hold up in court. Montrose, Colorado. Josh Smith wanted a burger, some chicken strips, and his favorite frozen treat, but ended up in the middle of a legal battle over his First Amendment rights and what a police officer accused him of doing wrong. It all started on the afternoon of October 8th in Montrose, a town located about an hour's drive southeast of Grand Junction on Colorado's western slope. So, the other side of the Rockies. When police stopped a stolen Kia and arrested 2 people, it happened outside a fast food joint known as Humdingers. Smith is a regular customer there. It's like less than a mile away from where we live, so we go there, Smith told 9 News. But when he pulled in that afternoon, 3 Montrose police vehicles clogged the path to the drive-thru window. Officers had stopped an SUV and had been rented months earlier from Hertz, but never returned. They had arrested 2 people and were in the process of sorting through potential evidence in the vehicle, including drug paraphernalia. Body camera footage obtained by 9 News Investigates shows the officers finding a sex toy leading to laughter. And by the way, it's in the article. One of the officers stuck the toy onto the car's rear fender, where it stayed for a time, looking like a pornographic radio antenna.
The maturity of the police.
They get to play around with a sex toy they found, but God forbid somebody swear.
Yeah, exactly.
I bet they didn't use gloves on it.
Oh no, yeah. they were all wearing gloves.
Oh yeah, of course they were, because they were searching a vehicle. That's standard procedure. Ugh, still gross.
Smith knew none of that. He knew only that he wanted food for his girlfriend and a Reese's Polar Swirl for himself. And those are basically Dairy Queen Blizzard type ice cream treats. When Smith got there, all he saw were 3 police vehicles in his path to the menu board. I could barely squeeze through to get to the drive-thru, and I just rolled down my window and I yelled. What he yelled, "Move your shit out of the way, dickheads," was captured on 2 officers' body cameras. One officer chuckled.
Oh, so he didn't even call somebody a bitch. He said dickheads.
Yeah. One officer chuckled as... Yeah. One officer chuckled as she repeated Smith's words. Moments later, a sergeant walked up to the drive-thru lane where Smith was parked, waiting to order. And we just saw that. That was Sergeant English. Such a dumb fucking name to begin with. So he is a dickhead. Yes, sounds like a dickhead.
Yeah, that's probably why he took it personally like that. You know,
he was like, "Oh my god, this guy's having said to right."
Yeah, it's like a bait word for this person.
I've been being called a dickhead since junior high. I've had enough.
Quit yelling or you're going to get a citation. Understood, the sergeant said. The lights are there. That means don't go by them. Get the fuck out of the way. I'm ordering my food, Smith responded. Quiet, the sergeant replied. Order your food. The Montrose sergeant walked away and, according to a police report, moved the patrol vehicle closer to the contact vehicle we were searching to not block access to the drive-thru while still trying to keep the scene secure. They had been on scene for nearly an hour before any of this happened.
And they've been blocking this business's drive-thru like some dickheads for an entire hour.
Time. Yeah. That might have been the end of it, but when Smith got to the window, a Humdinger's worker told him he was the first customer in a half hour. Okay, so they'd been outside for half an hour. She thought the drive-thru lane had been closed off by police. As I was sitting there waiting for my food, I kind of just realized, he just threatened me and I didn't even do anything wrong, Smith said. After picking up his order, Smith pulled around the building. He was yelling as he drove toward an officer who approached his car. What's the problem?
God, this guy.
She asked. Go ahead.
Oh no, this guy is like becoming a hero of mine already.
Yeah, don't just disengage. If they want to escalate it, let them do it, because there are clear and concise settled law on this subject. You cannot arrest someone for telling the police to go fuck themselves. So one of the officers said, "What's the problem?" And he said, "You guys are blocking the fucking road," Smith responded. "They said nobody could get through the drive for a half an hour." After some back and forth, the officer asked Smith his name, and he said, "Fuck you." That officer conferred with the sergeant, who decided that Smith had broken the law. No.
He's just pissed you off. Cops never know the difference between them being annoyed and the law being broken.
Oh, Ruby's here. Hi,
Guy's a fucking
Ruby.
hero.
Hi. Oh man, this guy's great.
When did you jump in, Ruby?
Probably just like 5 to 8 minutes ago. Yeah, I was a bit
Okay.
late. Sorry about that.
No, it's okay. So he said, "Fuck you," and drove off. The officer conferred with the sergeant, who decided that Smith had broken the law. I'm gonna go stop him and write him a ticket, Sergeant. That's Sergeant English, by the way. Sergeant English.
Dickhead.
So he is a dickhead. He is an asshole. He climbed into his patrol vehicle and headed off in pursuit of Smith, stopping him about a mile away. You're gonna get a citation. I need your driver's license, the sergeant said after walking up to the driver's side window of Smith's car. For what? You can't be flipping people off. Yes, you fucking can.
It's called freedom of speech, baby. You work for the state. I can tell you to go fuck yourself until the cows come home. These cops.
A short time later, the sergeant returned with a ticket for disorderly conduct for making an obscene gesture. No. What is an obscene gesture is me jerking off in front of you. So go fuck yourself. You can't be going around flipping people off, yelling at people, the sergeant said. You're a dumbass, Smith replied. and Sergeant English said, that's why you're getting a citation. Yeah, a citation. I'll beat it when I go to court.
Right? We'll talk about this in front of the judge.
According to Montrose's municipal code, a person can commit disorderly conduct in multiple ways, including by making an obscene gesture to another person in a public place in a manner likely to provoke a violent or disorderly response. Like me, just making the motion of jerking off. That is likely to provoke a violent or disorderly response. It is a lewd or obscene gesture. That is not protected free speech, although I think it may soon become protected free speech if I have to take it there. There is nothing prohibiting someone from using basically any language they want to protest the actions of a police officer, said David Lane, a Denver-based civil rights attorney. The United States Supreme Court decided that back in the 70s, back when they tried to arrest a person for wearing a shirt that said "fuck the draft" into a courthouse. Disturbing Smith's language, even if some might find it offensive, is protected free speech. Disturbing the police, as it turns out, is not a crime. Contempt of cop is also not a crime. What is a crime is violating the constitutional rights of citizens.
Mic drop.
Go ahead.
Circle back to our tyranny problem. We also have a lot of petty tyrants.
Yeah.
It's an issue.
Well, and here's the reason why we still have cops that are tyrants. It's because we have politicians, we have administrators. We've from the top down, we have nothing but tyrants. Your administrators, your legislators, your cops, your judges. Fucking tyrants. I just gave you 3 fucking tyrants. I gave you an executive branch tyrant. I gave you a judge tyrant. And now I'm giving you fucking cops that are tyrants. They're all fucking tyrants. Every single fucking one of them. While I may not have given you a legislative tyrant, technically the first one was both legislative and executive.
There were a lot of tyrants.
So on November 7th of last month, Montrose's city attorney amended the charge by dismissing the allegation of disorderly conduct and accusing Smith of interference with an officer. That's not going to hold up.
Of an officer.
Writing in a court motion that the change accurately reflects the evidence to be presented at trial.
It's crazy that there's a ticket, though, that's basically a cop felt like you were in their way.
Yeah, pretty much. The city's ordinance defines interfering with an officer as using or threatening to use violence, which he didn't do. Force or physical interference or obstacle, which he didn't do, to obstruct, impair, or hinder the enforcement of the law or preservation of the peace by a peace officer, which he didn't do. Lane said that the charge conflicts with numerous court rulings. If you are physically interfering with the police doing their official business, then they can arrest you for that. Interference generally requires a physical obstruction, or you are right in their faces while they're trying to do something that involves official police business, and they can't really do it because you are so close to them yelling and screaming, or you verbally threaten to use force or physical interference. But he didn't do any of those things. There was no physical obstruction. There's case law that talks about how any interference charge has to involve a physical obstruction of the police. Yelling at the cops, calling them idiots, calling them names, and flipping them off doesn't interfere with anything. It just hurts their feelings. So now you've got a new lawyer to follow. So,
but won't somebody think of the cops' fifis?
No, I will not think of the cops' fifis because they do not matter. No, honestly, let's be honest. If Ben Shapiro was right, and facts matter more than feelings, facts don't care about your feelings, then I don't care about your feelings. I don't care about the cops' feelings. I don't care about anyone's feelings when there are objective facts that contradict your fucking feelings.
I only care about the feelings of people I love. So,
exactly.
If you're not in my inner circle, it is unreasonable for you to expect me to give a shit about you on that level. We ain't that close.
Abso-fucking-lutely. And while I may have gone on a tirade saying, I don't care about your feelings, that generally goes for anyone I don't fucking care about, not for anyone that is here as we speak.
I knew what you meant.
It's just wild, because in New York, you throw around dickhead a lot. I mean, this is like wonton usage in that area. And funny thing too is just like person says dickhead, officer English beelines to us.
That was in fact because that was why I said after living in Philly for 2 years, because like nothing he said is not stuff that people don't regularly yell from cars. Like that's normal city speak. What's the cops' problems? Why are they so sensitive?
I yell it from the cab of my truck on a nearly daily basis. So
I've called Philadelphia cops dickheads before and they took it just fine. They expect it. They like it even. It makes them feel like they're doing their jobs.
Yeah, sensitive people should not have a position of power. Honest, like
if you're too sensitive to be called a dickhead, you don't get a gun. That should be the rule. Listen, I know, Erica, you're not super chill with gun control, but if you're too sensitive for somebody to call you a dick or a dickhead, you shouldn't have a gun. That should actually that's the gun control test that I want.
Oh yeah, but see, it's all the people in government that are the ones that can't handle being called a fucking dickhead. So, instead of saying if you can't handle it, then no gun for you. let's just blanket ban the government from having arms to begin with.
Girl, you're speaking to my heart now. Get rid of police officers' guns. Make them carry around truncheons. And like they already do that over in England. They don't let police officers have guns over there unless they're in specialized teams. Why do we overarm our cops? What the fuck's up with that? The piggies do not need to be well armed. They need to be well trained. Stop giving them tanks and start giving them like actual training, de-escalation training. Maybe call them a dickhead a few times and see if they can take it.
Well, and it's exactly because of cops like Sergeant English. It's exactly because of judges like Judge Timothy O'Hare. It's because of presidents and attorney generals like Trump and Pam Bondi that are the reason why whenever an anti-gun person asks me, why won't you give up your guns? And I said, listen, I will consider the request once we disarm every single government on the face of this planet.
Huh, yeah.
I'll consider it, but chances that I'll actually do it are extremely low. Because you're never going to get rid of evil in the world. You can't do it. There's always going to be someone that violates the general principle of kindness in the world, and you've got to be able to respond.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's usually, either the most sensitive or the most evil that are super power hungry in this way, because they just can't handle the fact that there's even one element of life out of their control.
Okay, so we are done with that. We're gonna go ahead and we're gonna go to the live chat screen. Oh, shit. Okay, hold on. Now we're gonna go to the live chat screen, and we are in fact going to talk about this. And me and Liz actually hashed this out last year. A Democratic lottery. Does anyone besides me and Liz know what that is?
No.
Okay.
No, you guys need to talk to me more.
A Democratic lottery basically removes people running for office from the highest to the lowest positions in any political government. So the president is not elected. Legislators are not elected. Your local executives are not elected, and your local legislators are not elected. What does, however, occur is based on certain demographics, very similar to jury duty. There is a lottery in which your name gets picked out of a hat, and you're required to serve in some form of office. Now, me and Liz talked very specifically about the job of the president and how it shouldn't just be any random Joe off the street. How the pool should be limited to younger officers and some staff NCOs in the military.
And you wouldn't just select them by lottery either. The way that you would deal with the Democratic lotteries is that you would gather together people and then have the people be educated on the different resumes of the people involved, and they can vote on it. American voters don't take the time to educate themselves before they vote generally. But if we were paying people to sit in these committees to actually learn the information, they would take the time to diligently do their job because they would have a motivation and compensation for doing so.
Well,
So kind of like a direct democracy, almost.
Yeah, let me give my elevator pitch for this. Imagine a system where we all actually had an equal shot at serving our community, where the leadership wouldn't be determined by how much money you had or how popular you were or somebody's backroom deals, but instead it would just be chance. A democratic lottery could have that exact transformative approach to government. You would just select public officials from the diverse pool of citizens, and then you would like demographically represent people, right? And then instead of people coming in and saying, I'm going to represent the 100 people from my hometown, they just come in and they represent who they are in their life, everything about them, and they vote according to their own values. And then you don't worry about money creeping into elections. And sure, there might be one or two crazy people, but like there's one or two crazy people in society too. And that doesn't mean that they shouldn't be able to speak for themselves.
That's very valid.
I had discussed previously weighted lottery systems, so that we don't have people that are too old or too young that are getting picked, because I don't think an 18-year-old is at all responsible enough to handle the responsibility of representing a large number of people. But I also don't think that people who are too extremely old, like in their 70s and 80s, are honestly there and understand the struggles of people younger than them.
Yeah, I agree. That's
I had not previously thought about this as something that you would exclude. Like I could see going up to 21, and if somebody's doctor said that they like I would say that for people over the age of 70, like I would ask that they had a competency check. I have known so many wise older individuals that were completely there. I don't know about completely cutting them out if they were still competent enough.
Well,
That's the only place I disagree with.
That's why I generally say the pool should end at 60, because they're close enough in age that they can remember the things that were going on for people that were older than them. They can validly represent them, but they are also young enough that they see the struggles that their kids and their grandkids are going through, and they can also represent them.
I kind of feel like either we should, like, one concern I have with the age exclusions being brought up is that, like, if this is supposed to be people representing just who they are, then, like, why would we exclude people based on being 70 or something? Because, like, who's going to represent 70-plus-year-olds then?
Well, when you take all of the weights into account, that's only one of the weights. But generally, the way that these demographics work is, you're picked for your area, and most people in a small area, like half a city, majoritively hold all of the same opinions, or many of the same opinions, maybe not all of the same opinions. So in representing themselves, they are also representing everyone else from their area. It's not always true, but it is a much better system than just simply electing someone. There are no lies in demographics, but there are tons of lies in politics.
Exactly. And there's a lot of the ancient Greeks knew that if you ran an election ran a democracy by election, what you actually got was an oligarchy, because inevitably people with the money and the means to do so would go around and garner support by doing favors or by outright giving gifts. So you couldn't have an actual representative democracy by election and also have money in your system. These aren't even new ideas, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, and of course, with the idea of having a weighted system, we also have to add a shit ton of House seats. We have to triple the number at the very least.
How would you organize that?
That is still something I have not given thought to. But
So
we at least have the infrastructure to do the lottery system. We have the infrastructure to add all of the weights. What's this link? Sortition.
Oh, yeah. So I was linking to the articles, and then the next thing in the chat is going to be an ancient lottery device used to select representatives. It the way that you would choose people would probably be a complex computer program, and you would take like an area, and you would agree like this is a percent of the population that we're pulling out to be represented. And so you take the population of that area and you break it down into the demographics, and then you pull out people that represent by lottery those demographics, and then you send them to represent themselves. And there's a certain point where you can have that group of people research candidates for a smaller, more exclusive thing, like, controlling the military or controlling, say, food stamps, where they would look at the people who are going to be executing that role, and then they would also vote on the people who are going to do that role. So you would still be using the lottery system even to help select jobs that are more permanent. Did that answer your question, or did I just be more confusing?
That answered it a little bit, but it's well, I guess yeah, that it kind of does. I was just thinking when I asked that, what kind of demographics would be represented, what roles would be represented. I guess like in terms of how many seats and whatnot, like what would the seats represent?
So I think that it would be important to represent people by class, race, and gender in an area, and also age, because those are the main ones that we look at now. And also to go back and adjust it every few years and be like, are those like, because that's what I would start out with, and be like, are those the right demographics? Because it's not like, it's supposed to be a democracy experiment. You're not supposed to just be like, all right, well, this is the way it is. Like, you're supposed to move around a little bit and figure out what actually represents you, and not just get stuck with the same system and never grow.
Yeah, that's valid. That might be a pretty good starting point, to kind of, represent the intersectionality of different groups of people, like you said, different classes involved there. You have
Different
probably more
slices of
seats for
life
middle
in
class.
America.
As for positions like the president, my greatest gripe with the president and how we choose the president these days is, it's America's it's American Idol. I mean, Gabriel Iglesias made this joke years ago. Who's gonna win this bitch? But that's really what it has become over the past several decades. It's the question, who's gonna win this bitch? and it's always about who's more popular and who's got more money and who do people like more.
Not to be an old lady about this, but I have been saying that reality TV show is going to ruin our country since it started. And I feel, first of all, I feel like Cassandra, because this would not be the first time I've brought up this point, but the second that we let people get on TV so that we could judge them, so that we could play game shows and pretend they were people's lives and stuff, we started to devolve in our entertainment from when you sit down and you script a show, there's intentionality that goes into it. And this is kind of the same reason that AI art is both not good and like it's not beneficial to read, and you wouldn't really want a child reading it. Because when you sit down and make a story and you put a lot of intentionality into it, you build something that is communicating of worth to another person. And reality TV show is inherently like eating empty calories. It's like eating white bread. It's not good for you. It's not doing anything besides playing on your base emotions. And as a country, we just decided that we would turn our brains off at some point and we would engage in this mindless activity. And I know that we have doom scroll posting now, but I really feel like Jerry Springer was the start of this.
Yeah, I would generally agree. And then of course you've got all of the other damaging reality TV shows like Flavor of Love.
Oh my God. Even just
90
the
Day
real.
Fiance.
Oh my God. 90 Day Fiance is the fucking worst. The worst of them.
The Bachelor, the Bachelorette, you know, it goes on.
I think the biggest issue I have with it is that with reality TV show is that it kind of simulates what actually going out and getting to know people and socializing should. It forms these really weird parasocial relationships that it really removes you from reality in a way, which is really crazy because it's called reality TV show, but it removes you from
And a
it.
simplified form of reality too that doesn't really reflect the real world.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like not even looking into a funhouse mirror. It really is like AI art. I don't know how else to put it.
Yeah, it's really freaky.
Yeah.
And at least with a book, you know, you can say that it's almost like a similar thing that fiction books do, but not really, because you know it's everything in a fiction book is it's meant to be symbolic or it's meant to convey a theme. Reality TV show doesn't really do that, you know. It's like you said, it's like empty calorie.
Yeah, and you know what? I would actually argue that like there's a certain brand of like pulp fiction that is almost as bad as this stuff, but you still had to sit down and read, and you still had to engage a part of your mind to read those stories. So it was this impulse that humans have for nutrition free snacks. It's not new. It's just that we have found more effective ways to give ourselves empty calories than ever. It's the TV, and now with social media, like most of Twitter is an empty calorie. And also, it's in little bite-sized chunks. And if you spend enough time, you can feel your attention span starting to fray because of the meaningless of it, because the mind rejects it.
Yeah, it's horrifying. I've been feeling that happening to me over the past year, and I'm trying so hard to like even watch a 5-minute video instead of a 1-minute video. Like, yikes. Horror.
I see this happening within my own generation. You know, I was born in 97, so I'm like technically Gen Z, but whew, I'm glad I really liked reading because I think that saved me from this terrible attention span.
I've been trying to read more as well, and I've been reading a lot because for some reason that is easier for me than like watching a 5-minute YouTube video. But man, I can scroll for like 3 hours. It's frightening.
I
At least
feel
I don't wait.
called to avoid myself. I actually I got super addicted to Twitter for a little bit, and I noticed that I couldn't enjoy Reddit after a while, like the long form posts that I used to enjoy. And now that I have quit Twitter, Reddit has gone back to being my favorite website because I love the long form stories. But there was like a 6 to 9 month period there, and I saw it happening to me where I didn't want to read, those relationship posts with like the super juicy stories. I was like, this is too much. I don't want to read it. And like, are you kidding me? Those are my favorite.
That's why most of the YouTube content that I engage with are Reddit stories.
I love a good Reddit story. We have had some of the best stories told to mankind on Reddit, and some of the grossest ones ever. Sometimes they're the same story.
Some of my favorite stories came out of Today I Fucked Up.
Such a good song.
No, yeah, I've always preferred long form. I had someone try to kind of get me into TikTok, and it's like I get it, but it's just it's just too tempting. I feel like if anything, I would spend more time like on the short content stuff because it's just so easy to go from one thing to another, and at least I kind of have like a concentrated focus on the long form stuff, and I can just kind of like get the entertainment meter filled up in a shorter amount of time, believe it or not, because I read a long post and then I'm like exhausted after that and I have to go do something else. But yeah, I prefer, in terms of like shit posting, I love Reddit for that.
Reddit is my I used to joke that I didn't really need a boyfriend or a girlfriend or anything because whenever I get lonely, I can go on Reddit and I can just experience the whole of humanity through a story, and also in a way that makes me be like, maybe I'm better alone.
Yeah, valid. That's my choice to not date anymore was because I went through a lot of bad things, but going on Reddit and just like hearing everyone else's story, I'm like, wow, I am so much better off on my own.
If you ever are like, oh man, being single sucks and I'm lonely, I recommend the Just No Mother-in-Law subreddit. It will cure you of your urge to have a relationship.
No.
Okay. Who here knows what polyamory is?
Yes. Oh yeah.
Okay, so I am polyamorous. I have practiced it ever since 2016, so I'm going on a decade here soon. And back in 2018, I had a girlfriend. We started dating. I had met her years prior. But who thinks that polyamory is all about just sleeping around?
I actually don't.
Great.
Yeah, no, I went on a date with a guy once that told me the complex governance system of his polyamory household. So it can't just be about sleeping around.
No. But for her, she was sleeping around even before I discussed the topic of polyamory with her. So it is absolutely possible to cheat in a polyamorous relationship. And she went out with this guy who did, in fact, sexually assault her. And I comforted her for months afterwards. It was about 2 months afterwards. And then she just fucking ghosted me.
Oof.
And I kept reaching out to her over and over and over again. Come to find out, she pulled out a restraining order against me, an emergency restraining order against me, and accused me of being the one that sexually assaulted her.
Ooh.
That's crazy.
And I came to court with all of the documents to prove that I wasn't even in town when this happened. And I had forgiven her for the cheating. But
I'm so sorry.
But I say that to say this. I swore off dating for months. And then I reconnected with the woman I call my wife, my fiance, my partner in life, and we have had a very, very successful relationship for more than 5 years now. We got we got together in 2019, and so just because we've all seen this shitty side of dating and relationships doesn't mean there isn't good out there. That's all I wanted to say.
I appreciate that. And I just like to say that I got a dog and I've never been happier. Just on a, different strokes for different folks is all I'm saying. Since my last relationship, I got the puppy and I realized that all I ever wanted in the world was somebody to lick my nose, and you don't need a human for that. In fact, you probably don't want one.
Yeah, but aside from all of this, I do think like every time we've elected someone who's, at least dabbled in the entertainment business into a position of power like this, it's kind of always not been the greatest thing.
So here's a contradiction of the human mind. Whenever Amber Heard was crying up on stage, you would hear people be like, well, she's an actress. Right? Like when she was showing her feelings about it. And whenever Donald Trump gets up on stage and he's sincere, people don't go, well, he was an actor recently, right? Like a reality show actor. That is acting. And I just find it curious how when it's a woman who is going through something who happens to be in the entertainment industry, everybody will be like, well, she's an actress. But when a dude in the entertainment industry does the same, like, fake stuff that could be fake, nobody seems to recognize or call it out. Like, men are given an automatic sincerity pass, even though they have a similar entertainment industry background. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a confirmation bias thing. It has to be because you have this belief system under patriarchy that nobody ever really questions. Most people don't take the time to question where their beliefs come from, whether they actually feel that way or they heard someone else saying it and then they just adopted that belief while growing up. Most people don't take that time to self-reflect. So people, already kind of tend to believe that, women are just kind of like irrationally emotional for whatever reason, even though we all have, the same limbic systems and whatnot. And it's kind
Right.
of, yeah, it's a whole mess. People just don't take the time to question where they draw upon their beliefs, whether that is actually how they feel or if this is like something they heard their mother, their father, their classmates say and they just internalize that unquestionably. And I think a huge reason for that too is because, under capitalism, we kind of have to constantly be productive. We can't really think about anything like that. And that's the way it's designed to be, really.
Oh, that is a really, really good point, that there's not a lot of room in our lives for, just thinking about the bigger than the meta of it all. And that's like, I do spend a ton of time just thinking about that kind of stuff. Perhaps I'm being unfair to people with as judgmental as I feel about it.
No, not at all. Okay, so we are at an hour and 52 minutes, which means it's just about time to get the hell out of here and go into our post-show hangout. With that being said, does anyone have anything else that they want to talk about? Anything related to today's subjects or anything else we discussed?
Yeah, I think that democratic lotteries are the only way for us to get ourselves out of this mess and still maintain a sense of representation. I think that the idea of elections might sound like you're exerting your power, but if you really consider it, it's just the rule of whoever goes out and goes to vote over all of the people who didn't. It's not very representative at all. You're not getting the kind of democracy you think you are. And if we paid people to show up randomly through a lottery system, I think we'd get a hell of a lot of better results. And George, if you're listening, and you probably aren't, get that fucking documentary out so I can show it to people, okay?
Okay, Margaret, any last words?
Just the I hadn't seen any of the Donald Trump take their guns remarks before. I don't know how I hadn't seen them, but the hypocrisy is staggering, and we should be blasting those clips everywhere.
Oh, I already am, but I encourage anyone else to take that and blast it out. Haley.
I guess my last thoughts are, if this past 11 days has shown us anything, it's that we are very quickly descending into further and further into authoritarianism. And I think that that's evident looking at any number of things that's come out of the current administration. And I hope everyone out there is ready to do what they need to and do what they can and contribute to the fight to prevent that from becoming the reality in America.
And read the first few chapters of The Handmaid's Tale, not because of the sexual subjugation part. Just read the description of how the Constitution was suspended and people didn't fight back because there wasn't an enemy. And just think about it and sit with it for a little bit, okay?
And then finally, Ruby, any last thoughts?
Oh, yeah. The last 11 days have been super anxiety inducing for me, but I guess I mean, it's really difficult to choose which really strikes the most, but you know, it's just really crazy because, you know, you've always had Republicans, you know, say, oh, you know, XYZ is going to take our guns, but Trump's literally talking about doing it. And I don't feel like I see as much backlash as I thought I would, you know, from people within the own party. You know, obviously I see it here and whatnot, but I'm like surprised there's just not a huge uproar about that. And that's very concerning. I mean, people are just falling in line with it.
Yeah, and the problem is that he was rightfully called out during the election for it, and everyone dogpiled Kyle Rittenhouse over his saying he wasn't going to vote for Donald Trump, and of course we got this bullshit all over again.
By the free speech enthusiast on the right, no less.
Absolutely. With all of that said, I want to thank all of my co-hosts. I'm going to go ahead and mute them for a moment, and I'm going to leave the audience with this. I constantly refer back to a Supreme Court decision from 1943 called Barnett versus the West Virginia State Board of Education, which had overturned a SCOTUS ruling from 5 years prior called Minersville School District versus Gobetis. The majority decision of the court says this: if there is any fixed star in our constitutional constellation, it is that no official, high or petty, can prescribe what shall be orthodox in politics, nationalism, religion, or other matters of opinion, or force citizens to confess by word or act their faith therein. With that said, I will see everyone next week. Same time, same place. Go fuck yourselves.